Hey kids, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name's Amanda. I make videos about movies, TV shows, books, and writing. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have a new lighting setup. I just got myself a ring light, kind of excited about it. It's the first time I'm using it. I'm not really quite sure which lighting is the best, so I might be playing around with some of the lighting. So if you see that in the next few videos that my lighting changes, that's what it is. Anyway, today I am reviewing The Chef by James Patterson. I'm not gonna lie, this was kind of just an impulse buy. I was in the grocery store just picking up some stuff and saw this cover. I mean, look at that cover. That's a slick ass cover, I'm just saying. This was actually my first time reading James Patterson. I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about him. Some people love him, some people don't love him. But I figured I'd give him a shot. He is one of the most well-known writers in the literary world. So this book follows Detective Caleb Rooney, who is a detective in the Major Crimes Unit in the New Orleans PD. He also happens to be the owner of a food truck called Killer Chef, where he's the chef. And he's actually fairly well known for being the chef on this food truck. So the book starts off, he's been accused of murder. He's basically being accused of a bad police shooting. He ended up shooting a suspect in the midst of a chase. And typically when that happens, internal affairs will conduct an investigation to make sure that the shooting was justified and that there wasn't excessive force used by the officer. So that's how the book kicks off. He's getting ready to go into the hearing where the board will question him about that day. And then after that, they will decide whether he gets to keep his badge or not. After the hearing, I'd say I think the next day or a couple of days after, his old captain comes to him and tells him that the FBI has gotten some intel that there's going to be a terrorist attack on Mardi Gras, and they've basically been shut out. The local PD, that is. The local PD has essentially been shut out. The FBI has completely taken over the case, and the captain just strongly feels that the local PD should be involved in this because they know New Orleans the best, they know the people the best, but alas, the FBI has told them to back off. So he goes to Jacob, who is on leave, and asks him to look into these possible terrorist attacks. So without giving away any spoilers, that is the plot of the book. Things I liked about this book, I really liked the way the relationship between Caleb and his ex-wife Marlene was written. These two work together. They own the food truck together. It is their food truck, and they were also married at one time, but have since divorced. They're already divorced when the book starts. But the way that they were written with kind of this like playful banter, almost like they were friends. It was just a really realistic and nice portrayal of a divorced couple that continues to work together. Showed what Patterson told us was that they just didn't work out as a couple, but they worked really, really well together, and it showed that beautifully. Another thing I really liked was how the author wrote New Orleans. The story is in first person, so we're seeing everything through Caleb's eyes, and you can really tell that he has a love for New Orleans. Anytime he takes us to a particular street, he's taking us to a particular restaurant, and he's telling us like all about this restaurant, some of the best qualities of the restaurant, his favorite dish. It was almost like he was taking us through a culinary tour of New Orleans, which I really, really appreciated. It gave me a great feeling for the city itself and what it was, what the culture is like there, which I really, really liked. Another thing that I really liked was how it began. It begins right in the middle of a shift on a food truck just before the hearing. I think it's like the breakfast or the lunch shift. It throws us right into the mix, and the way that Caleb is describing how he's preparing each dish just really shows his passion for food. And like I bought that this guy was a chef. It was completely sold to me that he had a passion for food and that he loved what he did. I usually don't like first person, but this one, I mean, I read it in like 2 nights. I was devouring it. I absolutely adored it. The first night I was loving it a lot more than the second night, but that has a lot more to do with like what happens in the story. I also liked how during the hearing, because they do show the hearing where he's being questioned, Caleb is being questioned about the night that the night that the shooting went down. And I really liked that he had Caleb acknowledge that even though the suspect had been doing something wrong and like there was proof that he was a criminal, that he was still a human being and he still felt guilty for taking his life. I thought that was a super realistic approach to writing a cop. I've read cops in the past where they like make every excuse in the book to have the reader not feel sorry for the fact that he killed someone because, oh, he was a bad guy anyway. But it was really nice to see Caleb have that human moment. Let me read the sentence to you. I don't feel I owe an apology to anyone for following protocol and taking out a dangerous would-be gunman. But of course I mourn the man's death. I'm a human being. Unfortunately, that's rare to hear any cop publicly admit in this day and age. That's another thing that I really liked. He was very, like, the authors were very aware of the current climate, the current social and political climate, just with regard to like police relations with society, especially people of color. I also really liked how Marlene was written. She wasn't afraid to call Caleb out on his bullshit, and she also was there for him. Like, she was a genuine friend to him, and I really, really appreciated that, like, a lot. She was one of my favorite characters in the book, like, even more so than Caleb. I wasn't really feeling Caleb too much for reasons. I liked certain parts of him, but then he did stuff that I was like, I don't know about all that, kid. You could tell that they had a very profound connection, a very genuine connection. They were friends, and I liked that. So often, I think, when we see exes written, whether it be an ex-girlfriend, an ex-fiance, an ex-wife, they're usually like portrayed as like a bitch, or, you know, they're really like naggy, or, you know, they're written negatively in some aspect. And Marlene was not written that way at all. I loved it. Another thing I liked was the way that Caleb was written with regard to food. Like, the way that he spoke, it is written through his perspective in first person, but the way that he spoke was felt very chefy to me. He viewed the world through the lens of food, and a lot of the things that he described, he would describe almost like he was describing a dish. And he did describe quite a number of dishes, which I really, really liked. A lot of the things that he had him doing, like the authors had him doing on his off time when, you know, something wasn't going on, like with the plot, like plot-wise, he would have him like trying to come up with a new dish for the truck, or going to visit like a restaurant that he'd never been to, or one of his favorite restaurants to try a new dish, and he would be thinking up a new dish for his own place inspired by the dish he was eating. Like, I liked little details like that. It really, for me, brought the character to life and made me feel like I was reading about a chef. Another thing that I liked, weirdly, was that the first time the chief comes to talk to Caleb about these terrorist attacks, these imminent terrorist attacks that have not happened yet. They're supposed to happen on Mardi Gras, and I think that at this point it's a week before Mardi Gras, so Carnival is about to start. But Caleb doesn't just like jump on it. He's not, you know, he's not like right away. He's not like, oh yeah, I'll totally do it. Like, he straight up tells him, you know what, I'm not doing this. Of course, a chapter later, he convinces him that he does need to do it. So that, you know, there's that. Let's get into things that I didn't like, because I just saw one of the places that I marked and we need to talk. The love interest in this book is a woman that Caleb meets while he's out to dinner with Marlene, by the way. He goes to this restaurant, I think on the French Quarter. It's relatively new. The owner is from Miami, and he's talking to the owner, and he sees this woman that, you know, he thinks is beautiful, whatever. Her name is Vanessa, and it turns out a little bit later in her first scene that we find out she is the wife of the owner of the restaurant that Caleb and Marlene had been eating at. So that should pretty much put the end to that, right? Nope. There's a bit of a cheating trope. I didn't like the way that this was done literally at all. First of all, there's never an excuse for cheating. Like, cheating is terrible. And if you cheat on your spouse, you're an asshole, because there's literally no excuse to ever cheat. The author tried to justify this by portraying the husband as like abusive and this and that, but I mean, first of all, it was never actually shown. We were just told. And through Jacob's perspective, like, he's not exactly a reliable narrator. I mean, he's not reliable, period, to begin with. But on top of that, he likes this chick, and of course he's not gonna want to see anything good about her husband. I don't know. I don't like cheating, and I definitely don't like when it's justified. Like, I think having cheating in a novel, I think, is okay. I think you can do it. but you have to have another character outside of the throuple, I guess at that point. Outside of the triangle, you have to have another character. Call it for what it is. Then I think it's okay to have cheating in the novel, because you're not advocating, you're not romanticizing it in any way. I mean, you might be romanticizing it from the two cheating characters' perspective, but from a third character's perspective, you're literally calling it out for what it is. You're killing the romantic, you know, whatever. Another thing that I didn't like was the investigation. For me, there wasn't enough thought into the investigation. It was like very weakly, for me, it was very weakly done. There wasn't, I don't know, it didn't make sense. Like, there wasn't any moment where I was like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it just seemed very flimsy, and like, Caleb had zero direction for the entire investigation. Like, that's fine in the beginning when you're first starting the investigation, like you have no leads and you're trying to like drum something up. But once you drum up a lead, then you should start to generate a few more leads, and like maybe you hit a roadblock at some point, but every lead that you drum up after that initial lead, and even after that initial like dead end, should only like make things kind of start to form a picture in the reader's head, in my opinion. This was not the case in this book, literally at all. It was not the case at all. It was very confusing. He had a couple of different suspects that were like a couple of misdirections, and I don't know, it for me, very sloppily done. And who it turned out to be, for me, didn't really make sense. I think because of all the misdirections that he threw out there, and also the suspects that he had. It didn't seem likely that these group of people would literally ever work together, no matter how much money was in it for them. So I didn't really buy that at all. I wish that had been done better. Like, I wish that there had been more thought into the investigation. Also, the attack on Mardi Gras, I feel, could have been shown just a little bit more and not so much told. I also wish that Vanessa would have had more agency. She didn't really have very much agency at all. I didn't like the way that she was written. I don't know why James Patterson got Marlene right, but then our like female lead, who is meant to be our female lead, like, was a piece of shit. There was also an aspect of the story, like another adversary for Caleb, that just kind of tapered off. Like, it was really well done. The pacing of it in the beginning of the book was really, really well done. I'm trying to make this like spoiler free, but it was really, really well done. Then later in the story, it was just kind of forgotten. And then by the end of the story, it was just kind of resolved. And I wish that had been done better. I wish that it had been tied into the main plot somehow. That would have been ideal. But like, it's fine that it wasn't. I just wish that it had been, I don't know, not like an afterthought. Overall, I think I would give it 3 stars, because I did enjoy the way that he wrote New Orleans, the way that he described the city, really showed what a true love Caleb had for this city, and also the way that he talked about food and the way that he took us on that culinary journey through New Orleans. That to me was so vivid and very well done. One thing that I thought was really, really cool, he has some of the recipes from the Killer Chef food truck on the back of the book, as you can see. Also, can I just say, like, this is the about the authors. Look at James Patterson's like wall of text, and then Max Delalo, like, that's like one sentence. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed the read. I would recommend it. I would recommend it for anyone who likes thrillers. For anyone who really likes food, like you like to cook, I would highly recommend this book. For me, it kept me reading. Like, I wanted to find things out. I enjoyed going through the journey with Caleb. So yeah, a 3 out of 5. I'd recommend, if you like I said, if you enjoy thrillers. I don't really think it was a thriller, to be honest with you. But if you like mysteries, you like thrillers, it's worth a little pass through. who knows, maybe you'll see something that I didn't that, you know, makes it a better book than what I'm saying. I really don't know, because I haven't really read a lot of thrillers, and I haven't read any James Patterson. This was my first exposure to James Patterson. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would actually be interested in reading a book by James Patterson that is just James Patterson, and not James Patterson with another author. Because I wouldn't mind getting a feel for his writing. I can't really tell how much of it is James Patterson and how much is the other author. So I'd actually be interested in reading another book by James Patterson. If you have a recommendation, if you've read James Patterson before and you have a recommendation for me to read another book that he's written, leave it in the comments below, because I really would like to read another book from him. Anyway, that's all I got for you today, kids. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed already and would like to do so, subscribe button is literally right there. You can hit that on your way out. Also, ding the little bell so that you get notifications every time I post a new video. I post on Wednesdays. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.